All right, let's jump right in. We all know the Taj Mahal, right? It's the ultimate symbol of eternal love, built over 400 years ago by Emperor Shah Jahan. But today, we are not just doing a standard history lesson. We're actually diving into a rigorous modern feasibility study. We're going to look at the staggering engineering challenges behind this megastructure and figure out exactly what it would take and, more importantly, how much it would cost to build an exact replica of the Taj Mahal in the 21st century.
First things first, though, we gotta clear the air. You've probably heard the most famous legend about the Taj Mahal, that Shah Jahan had the hands of all 2,000 artisans chopped off so they could never build anything as beautiful ever again. Well, thankfully, historical records show there is absolutely zero truth to this myth. The true marvel here isn't some gruesome story. It's the sheer state-of-the-art engineering. We're talking about mastering incredibly complex optical illusions, like the famous shrinking effect, where the monument actually seems to get smaller as you walk toward it, and pulling off a miraculous construction feat right on top of a wet, muddy riverbed.
So, to figure out our modern construction budget, here's our project blueprint for today. We'll be tackling this chronologically. We'll start with the foundation on the swamp, move up to the framework and the marble illusion, check out the incredibly precise art of Parchinkari, explore those illusions and minarets, and finally wrap it all up in Section 5 with the final bill. Okay, starting off with Section 1, Foundation on the Swamp, conquering the riverbed. Think about this for a second. Building a megastructure that weighs hundreds of thousands of tons on the perpetually wet, shifting banks of the Yamuna River is arguably the most impossible phase of this whole project. Seriously, if you asked a modern engineering firm today to build there without a concrete foundation, they'd probably just laugh and walk away. But back in 1632, the Mughal engineers dug deep wells all the way down to the solid bedrock. Inside these wells, they dropped massive logs of ebony and mahogany wood. And here is the absolute genius part. Normally, wood rots, right? But ebony and mahogany are unique. When they are continuously submerged in water, they absorb it and become as hard and solid as steel. The constant moisture from the river actually keeps the foundation indestructible. After that, they just filled the gaps with a mix of lime, rubble, and tree resin. Now, what if we tried that today? Well, modern construction regulations definitely wouldn't let us use wood on a riverbank. To conquer that same riverbed in the 21st century, we'd need heavy drilling machines to bore out 600 holes, each 1.5 meters wide and 150 feet deep. We'd have to drive massive steel piles into those holes, fill them with specialized water-resistant concrete, and then cap the whole thing with a concrete slab that is 5 meters thick. Just pouring that one slab would require over 7,500 concrete mixer trucks, lined up back to back. Plus, we'd have to build a gigantic cofferdam just to keep the river water out while we work. So to build that modern cofferdam, sink those 150-foot steel piles, and pour thousands of cubic meters of concrete, we're looking at a cool $250 million. That's $250 million, folks, and we literally haven't even placed a single piece of white marble yet. Moving right along to Section 2, Framework and the Marble Illusion, the grand illusion itself.
Now that we're finally out of the dirt, we need to build that iconic, glowing white building. But brace yourselves, because we're about to bust another massive myth. The Taj Mahal is actually not made of solid marble. The internal walls and those massive structural domes are built entirely out of red brick and lime mortar. That brilliant white marble, it's just a casing. It's like a veneer applied over the bricks to deceive the eye. And there's a brilliant engineering reason for doing it this way. You see, a standard red brick weighs about 3 kilograms, but a similarly sized block of solid marble weighs 5.5 kilograms. That is 83% heavier. If the Mughal engineers had actually built the entire structure out of solid marble, the sheer crushing weight would have completely obliterated that delicate riverbed foundation. Even just using it as a casing, they still needed roughly 7,000 tons of the absolute highest grade white marble, which they had to source from Makrana, 300 kilometers away. And this perfectly illustrates the logistical nightmare, both then and now. In the 17th century, they set up this massive transport network using over 1,000 elephants and ox carts, and even had to build a 9-kilometer-long mud ramp just to haul the stones all the way up to the dome. Today, well, Makrana's deep mines are mostly depleted of this specific rare marble. To extract it today, we'd need 250 diamond wire saws running day and night for 5 years. That operation alone would eat up 20 megawatt hours of electricity, which, just to put that into perspective, is the same amount of power the entire nation of the Maldives uses in a year. And after all that, you'd still need a fleet of 1,100 modern trucks just to haul it. Let's go ahead and add that to our tab.
For a modern reinforced steel and concrete framework, the massive headache of leasing the mines, the diamond wire extraction of that rare marble, the staggering electricity bills, and the 1,100 transport trucks, we're looking at an additional cost of $1.08 billion. Next up, Section 3, Parchinkari Art, the truly unreplicable art. Okay, so we've got our white marble canvas. Now we enter the most delicate and honestly awe-inspiring phase of the construction. If you look really closely at the walls of the Taj Mahal, those colorful flowers aren't painted on. They are precious and semi-precious stones painstakingly carved and embedded directly into the white marble with such insane precision that you can't even slide a strand of hair between the seams. In the 17th century, Shah Jahan gathered thousands of the absolute best artisans from across India, Persia, and Central Asia to do this entirely by hand. Now you might be thinking, hey, today we have 3D printers and CNC laser cutters, no problem. But here's the catch. While modern lasers can easily cut the edges of the stones, matching the natural organic veins of the stones to create realistic flowing petals, that requires a human eye. No machine can do it. We would literally still need to source, house, and pay 5,000 master artisans for 5 solid years just to finish the inlay work.
So factoring in the high-tech laser cutting setups, plus the salaries, housing, and logistics for an army of 5,000 skilled artists working for half a decade, yeah, we have to slap another $220 million onto our growing receipt.
All right, Section 4, Illusions and Minarets. Time for some optical deception. You see those 4 towering, 43-meter-tall minarets framing the main mausoleum. They actually hide a brilliant, deliberate 17th century secret. If you stand back and look at tall, parallel structures, your eyes tend to play a trick on you. It's a geometrical optical illusion where straight, parallel lines appear to lean inward, like they're falling towards each other. To counter this, the Mughal engineers intentionally built all 4 minarets, tilting exactly 0.5 degrees outward. This outward tilt perfectly cancels out the optical illusion, so they look dead straight from a distance. Plus, this was a totally genius earthquake safety feature. If a massive tremor hits, the minarets are pre-engineered to snap and fall outward, safely away from the priceless main dome. Replicating this exact outward tilt with modern engineering isn't overwhelmingly difficult today, for sure, but it still adds precision costs to the tune of about 100 grand per minaret.
Which brings us to Section 5, the final bill. Let's tally this all up.
All right, the structure is finally complete. Let's run through the numbers and see the grand modern price tag. We've got $250 million to conquer the swampy foundation, $1.08 billion for the concrete framework, extracting that ultra-rare marble and the immense transport operation. Then $220 million for the unparalleled human labor of the stone inlay art, plus the minaret construction. Our total structural cost alone hits roughly $1.6 billion. But hold on, that doesn't include acquiring 42 acres of prime riverfront real estate, nor does it include the massive, mathematically perfect reflecting pools and gardens. Once you add the land and the landscaping, our final modern bill easily crests $2 billion. Now, $2 billion sounds like an absolute mountain of money today, but let's compare that to the historical reality. Official Mughal records indicate that Shah Jahan poured a mind-boggling 15% of the entire Mughal Empire's annual income into this one single structure. Just think about that. One of the wealthiest empires on the face of the earth, taking 15% of its total revenue and dedicating it entirely to a monument of grief and beauty. I really want you to pause and just think about that level of monumental financial sacrifice. We are talking about dedicating 15% of a global superpower's entire economic output to a project that offers absolutely zero financial return, no strategic military value, and no infrastructure benefit. It was purely an act of sheer, unadulterated obsession. Would any modern country, any modern economy ever make that kind of sacrifice today? The answer? Never. No way. Technically, we absolutely have the heavy machinery, the diamond cutters, and the specialized concrete to physically reconstruct the building. But the unparalleled passion, the artistic devotion, and the monumental financial sacrifice required? That means the Taj Mahal could only ever be built once. And it really forces us to ask, in a modern world driven purely by return on investment, have we completely lost the capacity to build monuments dedicated to nothing but pure eternal emotion? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.